What's up guys, in this video we're going to be texturing our door here in Substance Painter. Now, Substance Painter is really easy to use once you get used to it, especially if you have understanding of how masks work, and I'll show you pretty much the whole process. Also, what we're going to be doing is exporting these maps so that way in the video coming tomorrow we can actually render this in Blender. So let's get started. Now, in Substance Painter, we do want to have an ID map, and we don't have an ID map yet. So if you want to make one, what you need to do is you need to go back into Blender, and for the low poly, basically to make an ID map is really easy. You just go into edit mode, or vertex mode rather, and you just press the L key on areas you want to have a unique texture on. So for example, for the door, I can go here to vertex paint. I can choose a new color here. Click on this button and then press Shift K, and then I could, I just kind of repeat the process. You just go here to maybe the hinges on this area, go to vertex paint, choose a different color, and press Shift K, and you basically repeat this process to all the different pieces on here until you have the a different set of colors. So each color here will represent a different texture, and if you end up wanting to have the same texture on different areas, then you just assign the same texture to the different colors. It's no big deal. I just like to have as much versatility as possible, so pretty much every piece I'm making a different color for, except for maybe like the hinges, which will definitely have the same color. So it's kind of a fun process. It takes you back to, when you were a kid dropping colors on stuff. And I'm just going to do this for the rest of them off camera. And here we go guys, super easy process. It's just a bunch of different colors that we can use to define where we want our textures. Okay, cool. So I'm just going to export this one more time. We'll just go to File, Export FBX, and just overwrite the low poly FBX file. And now we just go into Substance Painter and start texturing. So I'm going to go to File, New, and we're just going to set the document resolution to 4K, select our low poly FBX file, and then add in those maps that we baked earlier inside of Marmoset. So load these in and then click on the OK button. Alright, so we just go to texture set settings, and what we want to do is load in that normal map. We just click on that. We go to our curvature map and then our ambient occlusion map. And you're going to see if you just kind of pan around, those should all update. And there you go. So we have all those maps loaded in. Looks pretty nice. Now, if you wanted to bake this inside of Substance instead of Marmoset, what you would do is you would go to Bake Mesh Maps. You'd select your normal, your ambient occlusion, and your curvature, and ID map if you had one. You'd set the output size to 4K, and then you would simply load in your high poly mesh in here, and that's how you would bake it in Substance. Really easy. But since we only need the ID map now, we haven't yet baked out the ID map, I'm going to turn all these off except for ID. And for ID, if we click on it, we want to set this to vertex color because we use vertex colors in Blender for that. And here I just want to make sure that we have this set to 4K. I'm going to click on Bake Selected Textures and just give it a second to load. And now we have our ID map. Now this is where we get to have a bit of fun and start texturing everything. So I'm going to kind of show you my workflow for Substance. It won't be like a beginner tutorial, obviously, but you should be able to catch on pretty quickly. I'd highly recommend watching Substance Painter's official beginner series. It's so useful, guys. It only takes you like 2 hours to get through it, so I'd really recommend watching it if you're not super familiar with Substance. But what I'm going to do is go to the Smart Materials and just kind of see what's available here. Some people are so like anti-smart material, but like they're already pre-built. Why waste your time building your own unless you have a specific idea in mind? Let's try doing maybe like a plasticky type of color, not because it's plastic, but because it looks good, or maybe like a steel. Let's try a steel one, see how that looks. Ooh, that's not too bad. Let's make this the piece in the back. So we're gonna right click, go to Add Mask with Color Selection, pick color, and then pick this one. And this is precisely why I recommend using vertex colors, because then we can select which area we want to have the material applied to. Now on here, you could easily adjust the parameters, like the scratches, for example. You could go to like the mask editor and kind of tweak that and see what's available. You could make the global balance like a lot higher if you wanted to. You get the point. But for now, we can just kind of leave that right there. I just want to get the general idea down on paper. And for the door, I'm gonna figure out what I want to use for the door. Alright, let's do a base plastic. Let's type in base plastic, or just plastic rather, and just kind of see what we have in here. There's like this plastic used. That's not gonna look natural at all. I just want to go for like maybe like a matte or glossy color and just kind of see what's available here. We could try this plastic dirt right here and just kind of tweak the parameters. I want to right click, add mask with color selection, and then just pick the door here. And maybe for these little hinges as well, we could also go to this color selection and make these hinges have that material as well, just to kind of, you know, get the general idea now. Right now, that's the only thing I'm really going for. And let's also search for a glass window. Let's try glass film. Drop that there. And then we can right click to add mask with color selection and then pick this for the window. And now we just have the general idea down. Maybe for the hinge right here, like the little cylinder, we could use like a different metallic color or metallic material. So let's maybe do like a, I don't know, like an aluminum, just to see how it looks. We can add a mask with color selection and then pick that. Okay, I know these colors don't look very natural right now, but we're going to take care of that. Instead of the aluminum, I'm just going to go back to this steel one and pick that. There we go. Cool. I don't want to have too many different colors running around, otherwise it won't look very good. Alright, this is way too dusty and dirty, so we need to definitely tweak that a little bit. So the easy way is to go here to the this plastic dirty scratched, and basically we can just kind of open the folder. What I usually do is I kind of go through here and see what's doing what. Like for example, what is this base plastic doing? What is this edges damage doing? So I have a visual as to what's actually happening because this was a pre-built smart material which I didn't build myself. So I'm going to turn off the scratches. I'm going to turn off the base plastic to make it a whiter color. And let's see how the dirt looks. You could turn off the dirt, but that actually looks pretty good. I do, however, want to tone down these settings a bit here in the mask. So we'll go to this fractal sum button and just kind of play with the histogram position and just kind of see what different values we get here. I'm just looking for a good visual. I do want a little bit of dirt there, but not too much. Okay, something like that would be good. Awesome. So what I want to do now is put some sort of alpha decal right here. And actually, real quick, before I do that, I want to give these little baked details right here the same color as the metal over here. So really easy to do. If we go over to the metal, which is this one, I think, right? Yeah, this one right here. What we can actually do is go over to this black mask, black and white mask. And if we want to paint in that color, what we want to do is reveal that black color. So to reveal it, we want to use a white color. So if you've used Photoshop before, you should know the general rule that black conceals and white reveals. So you're going to see if I paint in the white values, it's going to reveal that metallic texture, right? So what we need to do is make the flow 100% up here, so that way it's just instant. And I also want to make sure that we have complete hardness. So if we hold Control, right mouse button, then move up on the mouse, we can make a perfectly hard stamp. Now what I want to do is hop into front view. So to do that, you can press Alt, Shift, and then left click to kind of like do like a gesture to move to the sides like that. But basically we just want to zoom in, hold Control, right mouse button, then move left or right to adjust the size. And I just want to come in here and just kind of stamp that in. Actually, let's make it a bit bigger so that way we... I think it's the curvature. Yeah, we'll just do it a little bit bigger like that. Yeah, and that looks natural. I like that. Kind of has a nice contrast between the other details on the mesh here. Now, perhaps they're a bit too big. I think I should actually just stick to keeping it right in the middle. So a little bit smaller, and we'll only focus on the center there. Cool, much better, so there's no leaking out the sides or whatever. Cool. Alright, so now I want to add in that alpha decal right here on the front. So I'm going to go ahead and add in a new fill layer. And I want to make this fill layer close to pure black, but not quite. Excuse me. And what we want to do is right click and add a black mask. And you can add a right click to add in a paint here. And basically what I want to do is Alt Shift left click to kind of move to the front. And I have this custom alpha that I imported here into Substance. You can make your own in Photoshop, so I just imported this one, and basically I just want to stamp it in here. Now you're going to see when we stamp it, it's, you know, like a perfectly sharp, just default color, right? There's no sort of grunge or anything added on it. And compared to the rest of it, which is like kind of damaged, grungy, and things like that, it doesn't really match. So what we can actually do is go down here to the grayscale and use some grayscale colors, because right now we're just using the black and white values, which is only going to adjust kind of the opacity. So what I'm going to do is just go to grayscale. We're going to type in like dirt or something. I already had it typed in, but if you type in dirt, you can find these black and white masks here. And basically, if we use like this dirt gradient, for example, and stamp it in, you're going to see we get a result like this. Now, I definitely want to have a little bit more revealed. So if we go here to the balance, we can kind of slide this, and you're going to see it updates up here. And we can kind of like play with those values there and just get something unique. A little bit higher maybe. Okay, now we have to figure out exactly where we want to put this. Maybe like right there would be a good spot. Yeah, that looks pretty nice, so... yeah, no complaints there, looks good. Alright, so what I also want to do is maybe add in some additional little materials for these little hinges right here. Maybe for the area down here, you know what I mean. So we're going to go to maybe some sort of aluminum or steel color. So let's take a look here in the smart materials and just kind of see what's available to us, because, you know, I sometimes build materials from scratch, you know, pile on different, you know, generators and mass and things like that. But oftentimes there's a lot of good starting smart materials already built into Substance. So I just like working with those if I can. Kind of saves me some time. Let's try this aluminum right here and see how it looks. It's not too bad, but doesn't really fit with what I want, I don't think. You could try like a steel, like a different color steel here. So we can right click to add a mask with color selection, and then pick right there, and then pick this one. Cool. And then we can also pick these areas right here. And it just kind of gives like a natural contrast to the entire thing. As a matter of fact, let me go back to this one right here, the steel dark, and pick that one right there. And then we'll go back to the steel stained and pick this one, and we should be good to go. And I almost forgot these little hinges that are kind of like on the outside there. So I'm going to go to the steel dark aged again and pick that color. And it looks like we're good to go on that. So you can kind of see we have a nice contrast between that little lighter silver and the darker steel. Or they're both steel, but you know what I mean. Now what we could also do is go to this steel and kind of make a nice contrast on that area. Let me get rid of this alpha right here. I'm going to click the X button, click on it again, and type in shape. And this is the default one right here. And I also want to get rid of the grayscale. I don't want any grayscale for this one. So we'll get rid of that. Control, right mouse button, move up to make it a fully hard brush, and then make the grayscale set to 1. And then if I just Alt Shift and left click, I can kind of pan around. Control right mouse button and pan left or right to kind of adjust the size. Then I'll just come in here and kind of stamp in a bit of a lighter color for some nice contrast there. See what I mean? Just kind of pops a bit more. Much, much better. A little bit eye-pulling, just a little bit too much for my liking. So let me go ahead and make the grayscale maybe 0.5 so it's not as harsh. Kind of go in there, and you know, the lower you go, the less of an effect it has. So maybe that's still too harsh. Let's try 0.25. We'll go right there. And then go right here. Okay, a little bit less eye-pulling now. Now what we definitely need is to have a different color here for the door handle. Reason being is because the door handle here is a primary piece. You want the attention on this door to pull to the door handle, because, you know, what's the first thing that you're going to use a door for? You're going to use it to open the door, and you need the handle. So what you can actually do is drive attention to the main piece of the object by making a completely different color that just immediately pulls attention to it. So you can do like a red or a yellow or orange, whatever you think matches the vibe of your scene better. I would recommend doing that color for the door handle. But before we do that, let's go here to the steel dark aged and give this little outer portion that one. And then maybe the steel stain, the lighter one, we can give to the inner portion here for a nice contrast. Looks really good. And for the door handle, you can kind of choose the color you want. What I'm going to do is add in a new fill layer. And what we're going to do is make the color something different. We could try like a red. And before we mess with it too much, I'm going to right click, add a mask with color selection, and then pick the handle here. And now we can go back to the red color and kind of adjust it, play with like darker tones. We'll probably add some grunge and different effects to it in a little bit, but for now, I just want to see how that looks. You know, we could even try, instead of, building onto the fill layer, we could try one of these steel painted ones that's already red and just kind of see how it looks. That one's a little bit harsh. Let's try this one. This one could be okay. We could adjust the parameters in there. And then we have this one. Not too bad either. And then we have this one. I'm only looking at the door handle, by the way, not the whole thing. This one here is a bit heavy, I think. I kind of liked this one. This one felt the most natural to me. So what I'm going to do is add that one in, right click, add a mask with color selection, and then pick the door handle here. Cool. Now a little bit too worn down compared to the rest of the door, so I'm going to go to the folders here and just kind of tick these on and off and see what exactly is affecting what. We can go to maybe this right here, go to the mask editor, and you're going to see that's actually what adjusts the kind of the curvature damage, edge damage rather. So we're going to go in here and maybe play with some of these values and just see what's affecting what, adjust the curvature here. It's not too bad. What else could we do? Let's remove that one and maybe play with the balance here a bit. Just something simple. It's a bit too harsh for my liking, so drop the balance a little bit more. Maybe like right there. And that should do. Now I also forgot about this piece right here on the side, so let me go to the this steel stain, the lighter one, and just choose that to have a lighter color. Just for a nice contrast, really. Okay, so we have like the main materials or textures added. Looks pretty good. I don't think we're missing any pieces on here. If I find one, we can obviously mess with it later, but this looks good. Now we need to add some curvature, some edge damage, some maybe additional decals and normal stamps, and I'm going to show you exactly how to do all of that. I do, however, want to play with the color of this door handle just a little bit, so we can go here to the paint and kind of adjust it. You can play with the saturation here and just kind of see what you like, the value. You can make it darker or lighter. I like it darker though, it looks a bit better to me. Just something like that looks good. And one more thing that's kind of bothering me is this window is way too grungy. I'm going to adjust that. So if we hop over here to the glass, which I believe is this one right here, it says glass. What we can actually do is open the folder and let's just kind of see what this one's doing. That one's the dirt and this one's the glass. So for the dirt, really easy. We can just go to the mask editor that's been added here and just kind of drop the balance a little bit. And just give it some very faint kind of edge wear around it, as if it was like in some sort of chamber where you like decompress, add oxygen, whatever. What's that thing called? I don't remember. Brain fart, can't remember what it's called. Like one of those decompression chambers where you might kind of see an effect like this, but you know what I mean. So you can play with that and kind of get the effect you want around the edges, but this looks more natural to me compared to, something heavy like that. And this is why you shouldn't undo things for the video, because then it goes away. A little bit more. Now what I just noticed is that the window frame, kind of the framing around it, could also be a different color, but I didn't add that in the ID mask, unfortunately, so we can do it a different way. So I'm going to give the outer border of this window a darker color for that contrast. So what I'm going to do is go to the steel dark age, and what we can actually do is make the grayscale fully white, and there's actually an option to select from the polygons. You can just kind of go in here and use the polygon fill tool I don't use this one a ton because sometimes it's a bit inaccurate, but it does work in situations like this where you really want to fill this in with the right material. And I'm trying to figure out why this is so dark. Feels a bit off. You know, what we could have done is maybe, let me undo this, made it a little bit less harsh on the grayscale. So let me undo this real quick. Maybe we'll put it like down here and then go back to the polygon fill tool. Still a bit too much. Do it here. There we go, it's a little bit better. I just didn't want it to be like too harsh. I wanted it to be a little bit lighter. If you get to the pure black values, then you're just going to have problems when you do post-processing, so I don't like it. This looks a lot better though. So we're just going to kind of come in here, do it very carefully. You want to make sure you don't spill into the areas where you don't want to affect it. But yeah, really useful tool, especially if you don't have an ID in that area. So there you go, something small like that. And I do see that we have some curvature and edge wear there, but I actually think it kind of fills the scene a bit more, and we could always play with that a bit later. We could even fill in this area around it as well. Why not? Let's go back to the polygon fill tool and just do this area as well. I think it'll kind of fill it in a bit more. And you're going to see, if you want, you can fill around the bevel as well, which I evidently failed to do. So we're just going to kind of go around here. I know it's going to take a while, but you want to really make these assets clean, and sometimes you got to spend time going in here and just getting the areas you want filled. So yeah, this is where, you know, you want to be really careful when you do your ID maps in Blender, just because, you know, you might run into situations like this where it would have just been easier to add in a mask, but the hindsight's 2020, so not really a big deal. This is why Substance Painter has additional tools in here. Cool. So I got most of it. I mean, I could keep going in here and trying to get more, but this looks pretty good. And you're going to see some of that leaked into this area, which I did not mean to do, so we can actually go to a pure black value and just get rid of that. Like I said, sometimes it'll actually leak into areas you don't want, so you really got to be careful of that, because that will happen. And you want to try your best to not let it happen. I found that the polygon fill tool is a little bit too inaccurate for my liking, but you know, it gets the job done when I need it. So if I have to kind of fix a few things here or there, it's not really a big deal, but you're going to see it actually went a bit too far for my liking, but there we go. Should be fixed now. Now, one way to really make your model pop is to add in some edge wear in areas that are a little bit too generic and boring. For example, right here, the door is a bit too just plain, right? We need to give a little more oomph to it. So we need to go back to, which one is it? We need to go to this one right here. And let me actually turn on that base plastic. Let me see how these will look. We'll turn on the scratches actually and just kind of make the scratches a little bit less obvious. You can play with the sliders here. Maybe like right around here. Cool, something like that. Now what I also want to do is I want to add in some edge wear to it. So in this plastic dirty scratch layer, which is affecting the door, what I want to do is just open the folder, and at the top of this folder we're going to add in a fill layer here. And I want to make this just a silver color, because that'll be like a dirty color. And then I want to right click to add a black mask, and then I want to add in, right click and add in a generator. And we can actually choose things like adding in some dirt to it like that, which will kind of base it off the AO and things like that. You can also try something like this dripping. There is curvature, and you also have my favorite, which is the metal edge wear to kind of wear down the edges a bit. It pops a bit more, see what I mean? And that's exactly what I want. Now, this is why I said earlier, you don't need to worry too much about where your seams are placed because of grungy areas like this, but what we are going to want to do is kind of play with the sliders here. You can adjust the wear level, you can make it higher or lower, obviously you want to be reasonable. You can adjust the contrast, like that. The goal here is to make it pop, not be too distracting. You can increase the grunge amount if you wanted to kind of make it leak over a little bit more, which can be pretty cool. Kind of gives it a more natural feel. Grunge scale I wouldn't really mess with, but you can if you want. Ambient occlusion masking, you can kind of play with that and just see what results it gives you. Seems like it leaks over just a bit more, which is cool, but I'm not going to do that. Alright, for the wear level, I definitely want to increase that a little bit and drop the contrast down maybe. We're just going to kind of get in here and play with it. Really just getting in with these sliders and just kind of seeing what types of results we end up getting. A little bit too heavy on the wear level, so I'm thinking somewhere around here will be okay. Now what I also want to do is I want to duplicate this right here. So this is just going to be edge wear. We can rename it. Type in edge wear. And I just want to right click and then duplicate it. So duplicate layers. And on this one, I want to change this generator to something different like a dirt. And we can kind of, you know, add in additional stuff to it. You can try dirt, or maybe we could try the curvature. Let's kind of see how this works. That's actually not too bad. Let me turn off the old one. Maybe we'll keep it like this, and on the old one we can use dirt instead. And then we're really going to have to play with like the dirt level and stuff. But to see how much more this door pops, it looks a lot more natural. Now we want to be careful with the area with a lot of AO. So we want to get in here and adjust. You're going to see if I were to remove the AO, it's not going to really put it in the areas where you'd see natural dirt accumulation. So you don't want to remove the AO. But what you can do is kind of come in here and play with the sliders a little bit and just kind of see what type of results you want. You can play with the contrast, which will kind of help a little bit depending on the result you want. Really, you just have to get in here and experiment. The dirt level is going to be the most powerful tool though by far. And you can kind of turn this off and on and just see exactly how it's affecting. You're going to see it's just filling in the areas where the AO has been baked. And that's how it would occur naturally in real life. So you can increase the grunge amount, you can decrease it, and really just play with the sliders until you have a result that you're happy with. For this one up here, for the curvature, I'm going to rename it. I'm just going to drop the opacity on it a little bit because I think it's a little bit too heavy. So maybe a bit less on that one. Then for the actual dirt over here is where we can really begin to kind of play with that and bring out some more of the grunge. And just really make it pop. So for right now, this isn't too bad. I'm kind of happy with where this is. I do want to make the window in the center a little bit more dirty because, you know, although it's a little bit dirty around the edges, you'd still see some sort of smudges in the middle. So I'm going to play with that because right now it looks a little bit too unnatural. So I'm going to go back to the glass. So I'm going to go into the glass folder, and what we're going to do is click on the top layer and add in a new fill layer. Now I'm going to make this fill layer really dark because this is where we're going to add the grunge. And then all we have to do is right click to add a black mask. And then, you know, you could either paint in your grunge if you wanted to. You could go to the grayscale here and just type in grunge, or you could use a generator. I'm going to try painting it in. You could come in here and then kind of, you know, do stuff like this. You might want to use a more consistent alpha or simply drop the hardness of it, and then you can really get in here and kind of like that, boom, just like add in a little smudge in the center or something, you know what I mean? See how much more natural that looks now? Your other option is to add in a generator, and then just add in a dirt generator here and then adjust the dirt level like that. So either way, this one isn't too bad either. I think I'll go with this one because it looks a bit more aesthetically pleasing. Now we're actually making some great progress here, but what we are missing are some more tertiary details that we can add in. And you can do this very easily using normal stamps here in Substance Painter. Now what we want to do is go to the very top layer here, just click it. We're going to add in a paint layer, and what I want to do is turn off everything in here except for the normal option. And basically what we do, you know, if you click, well, we don't have anything loaded in yet, but if I go in here and type in normal, maybe we'll choose this one, right? Boom, you're going to see we have a normal stamp. Now what you probably want to do is increase the hardness. So control, right mouse button, scroll up, and you're going to actually have like a pure hard brush. Cool. So now we can actually go in here and add in some additional tertiary details. Now what we're going to do is maybe, let's go in here because I think all the normals are in here in this layer. If we search for normal, you're going to see all the normal stamps. Now I'm just going to use a basic line right here. You can click and drag it in. Then we can just add a few of these just to kind of make it a bit more, you know, pop a bit more. You could add some random lines here and there just to give some additional visual interest to the scene. You don't want to go overboard though, so I'll go right here and do something like that. You know, do random little stuff like that. Just kind of adds in more visual interest. It's very hard to explain kind of how I place these because it's just general placement of details is tricky altogether to explain, so I just kind of go where it feels balanced, and it's something you develop over time. So if you kind of want to understand more about that, I'm going to once again plug our design course that just came out. But yeah, it's something that's very hard to teach because it's very intuitive, but hopefully you can kind of feel like where things should be placed and where they shouldn't. Like right here, if I just did like a random stamp right there, which a lot of people would actually do if they're, you know, new to 3D, it's an attention puller. It has no real aesthetic here. This just pulls a lot of attention, whereas if I kind of put it in a, you know, softer location like over here, for example, it kind of, you know, maybe not there, but maybe like right here, it doesn't really pull that attention as much, and it kind of feels more balanced. So it's very tricky to explain because it's something you really have to feel, but you'll develop it over time. It doesn't come overnight, but the more you kind of work in 3D, the more you kind of understand like what's balanced and what isn't. And to a certain extent, you know, I still struggle with it. So, you know, you learn something new every day, so don't get too down if you don't fully understand how to place details. It is tricky. So right here we could try, ooh, that's way too attention pulling. You could always drop the flow and just make it like very soft altogether. So maybe not on that, but just on the layer itself. You might want to make a new layer for that one though. Let's see how these look. That's not too bad. That could work. Yeah, I think that'll work. It's not too bad. Kind of fills in the vibe a bit more naturally. Cool. I definitely like that. We might want to add a few more alphas like around the panel here and things like that. We'll do that in a little bit. For now, I just really want to get in all these extra tertiary details that we're working on. So let's see what else we have. We could do like a few more of these little circles. Do one like right here and right here, just to kind of visually fill in the scene. Do one right here and right here. Not too bad. Do like two right here. Can't really see those, so if you wanted to make these a bit more obvious, you could easily go to, for example, your steel, and then just make the grayscale full, and then just kind of paint in right here. If I can get the size right, you could just do something like that to kind of bring more attention in. But I don't actually think I want attention pulled to that area, so I'm not going to do it. Okay, let's go back to here and maybe add in... How would one look right here? Would it look weird? I think I'm going to leave that one alone. Maybe we could try like one that pushes out a little bit, which is clearly not that one. Let's try going to the side here and maybe putting in some detail. Like right here, kind of. No one's going to really be looking at the side, but it could just be filled in just a bit more in my opinion. Just some random little details here and there could always flow nicely. That looks awful. I'm not going to do that. We'll do here and here. Like I said, this is just for visual interest. It doesn't really have to make too much sense, because who's going to go in here and like go all doctor mode and worry about what that even does? Certainly isn't going to be me. I just care about if it looks good and looks functional. That's the important part, especially for a game asset. Now over here, Not too sure what we could put in this side. Maybe nothing. We could even leave this area blank, to be honest, but we could also try maybe... Nah, I'm going to leave it blank. I think leaving it blank would be a decent choice in this situation. Alright, let's add in some additional alpha. So I'm going to rename this layer to normals. And here we're going to name this alphas. Cool, so I'm going to leave the base color a little bit whiter. We're going to right click to add a black mask, and then all we have to do is just go in here and choose some different alphas we want to use. So maybe we'll just go into our options here, and we can just find one with text. So for example, I could use the substance, drag this in, and get something like that. Now maybe we'll put this like here at the bottom, but we'll change the name. I want to make this say like just some random numbers or something to make it look like it's like a whatever, you know what I mean. Just kind of come in here and you know, you could do something like that. The easiest way to make things look like they're an actual thing is to put like random letters and numbers just to make it look mechanical. I don't like where that's placed. I'm going to put it over here, I think. Yeah, like that. That would be good. We could do some additional ones here. Let me go ahead and do another fill layer. Add in a black mask. And just keep adding this in. We're going to do a different text instead. We could go in here and find a cool looking alpha that we could put here in the bottom or something. Just kind of see what's available to us. You could do like something like this maybe. And just make it a dark base color like that. And just kind of put it somewhere that looks balanced, which I don't know if it'll look balanced here. It's going to clash with this circle, unfortunately. So maybe like we'll make this a white value to contrast with the black. And do like a little, yeah, I don't think it's going to look natural over here, but if we went to the bottom or something maybe. No one's going to really see the bottom, but good excuse to drop something, I guess. I don't know. Let's try grabbing one of these. Maybe we could use like a cold sign just to indicate that maybe it's like cold through there. I don't know. And maybe put that like a little bit too showy. I want to drop the opacity a bit and just kind of drop that on the side or something. It's a bit too attention pulling still, so maybe we'll go even lower. Maybe over there somewhere would be okay. It's kind of up to you guys. You don't have to follow me necessarily, but I'm just showing you what I would do. Let's go back to a text alpha, so maybe something like this. And we could put like, well, obviously I want to rename this. We could do, just put some random numbers, and things can oftentimes look a bit, you know, more interesting. Now, I think this is a bug in Substance Painter where the grayscale slider actually goes away. I don't know why it does this. Usually I have to restart at this point. And you're going to see after I restart Substance Painter and go back here, the grayscale slider is naturally back in place. I'm pretty sure it's a bug, guys. If anyone knows why in the hell it does that, please let me know, because it happens way too much, and maybe I'm just pressing something by accident. I don't know. But it annoys the hell out of me, so I just have to restart Substance Painter usually. So let's just go back in here and just do another text alpha. We could do like some random numbers or something, and then boom, just kind of pop them in there. This is what happens when you restart Substance. It starts lagging at the beginning, getting everything loaded in. Can do something like that. You know, these details look small, but they will pop whenever you you know, whenever people look at it. It just looks more natural, so that's why I do it. It's a little bit too eye-pulling. We'll just do a smaller one here in the corner. And boom. Alright guys, so this asset is really coming along quite well. I'm pretty happy with it. Probably close to the end to be honest, but I still feel like we could do a little bit more just to kind of make this pop. So maybe what we could do is we could go over here to the steel dark, you know, this one in the back here. Why is it not updating? I think it's just Substance Painter going slow. But yeah, this one right here, we can open the folder, go to the top layer, and maybe add in a few more like things of dirt, maybe some edge wear, things like that. So what I'm going to do is add in a fill layer here. I'm going to go to the base color and we'll just make the base color, you know, relatively low, something like this. I'm going to right click and add in a black mask, and then right click again to add a generator. And we can just kind of play with this. We can try curvature. Doesn't look very good. We could try the metal edges again. That's actually not bad. We could try just some generic dirt and kind of see how that looks. A little bit heavy, so you might want to drop the dirt level. And you know, you can kind of play with that. You can maybe try this one. That doesn't look very good. I think I'm going to go with this one right here, the metal edge wear again. And as you can see, this kind of pops a bit more, in my opinion. So what I'm going to do is maybe drop the grunge amount just a bit, like that. And it's just going to kind of pop a bit more, so we can play with the wear level as well. And maybe instead of dropping the grunge amount, we can actually keep that a bit higher. And if we turn this off and on, you're going to kind of see the difference here. Nothing crazy, but I think it does add a little bit of extra detail to it, so we can turn that off and on. And you can kind of see the difference. Not too much of a difference, to be honest, but maybe we could even drop the opacity a little bit. Alright, so I'm pretty happy with this design. I think it's basically done. I might do a few more additional things off camera, and I would encourage you to do the same if you're making your own design. But other than that, I'm really happy with the result, so I'll just probably do a few things off camera, and we'll move on to exporting out the textures. Alright, so I didn't do too much extra, but I will show you what I did. First of all, on this right here, on the grunge for the background material or texture or whatever, I kind of dampened it down a bit so it wasn't as harsh. I also added in this XE Gen text because it looked cool. Most importantly, what I did was I added in some additional grunge here on the bottom. Now let me show you how I did that. Now what most people would do is they would come in here, they would add in, you know, a fill layer here, drop on a black mask, and they'd, you know, make this a darker color. And then they would come in with a paintbrush. So we have to find a brush here. For example, one of these, we could just go to like, I don't know, dirt. So a lot of people just come in, grab a dirt brush, right? And then they would just basically kind of paint in these like dirty effects, right? But that's not what we want to actually do. It's a lot slower that way. What you can do is go here to texture set settings, go to bake mesh maps, and you can bake the position map. And basically what this will do is it will determine where the ground is for the mesh and where the roof is for the mesh. So this would be like the ground area and this would be the upper area. So what you can actually do is you could add in a fill layer like this, drop on, actually you don't even need to drop on a black mask because you can use one of these predetermined ones that are in, which one is it? I always forget. Right here, the mask symbol. You can basically grab one of these that kind of have the ground, and if you drop this in here, what it does is it detects where the ground is. You can see now it's not very obvious because this seems to be a darker color, but as you can see, the position map has allowed you to detect where the ground is, and then you can come in here and kind of tweak the parameters a bit. You're going to see this one is way too heavy, and you could turn this one off. So without having that position map right here, it wouldn't actually work properly. So that's precisely why you want to have that one in there. So I just kind of dampened down the amount of grunge down here. Just, you know, it's kind of natural because you might have an accumulation of dirt starting from the bottom of something as compared to like the top, unless it was a very specific model, right? Anyways, that is all I did. So I'm really happy with the result here. Not too many complaints. And at this point, what we're going to do is export out all of these textures. So to do that, we need to go up here to File, Export Textures, and we need to go to the output directory and just choose a folder. Once you've chosen a folder, you can go to the output template, and we're going to be using the PBR metallic roughness. Now I have a separate one here, and let me show you why I have a separate one. Actually, I have two separate ones for some reason. Let me remove that one. So you're going to see that the difference between the default one and this one is that I have an AO channel. So to do that, you would basically come in here and duplicate this PBR metallic roughness, and you'd have a copy. What you would want to do is remove the emissive channel unless you have emissive stuff to export. I don't in this case. And then what we can do is add in a gray channel here, copy the values here. Don't ask me why, I don't know. I saw it in a substance tutorial, so I just followed that. When I start getting into like text symbols and like programmatic looking shit, I shut down. So I prefer to just follow tutorials that tell me what to do in this type of case. So yeah, then you come to the, the ambient occlusion, and just drag that in, gray channel, and now you're going to have an AO export. So pretty powerful stuff. So basically what you would do is here you would select that. So I already have mine, the PBR metallic roughness copy. We're going to do a 16-bit PNG. We're going to do 4K for the size, and then this should be fine. Click export. This should export really fast, and once it's done, you'll have any errors listed down here. But this is dealing with something that is not of our concern, so I'm not going to worry about it. Cool. At this point, we can hop back into Blender and apply all these textures in Blender, get it prepared for rendering, all that good stuff. Alright, so coming tomorrow in part 5, we're going to be wrapping this whole thing up. We're going to be rendering it, and we're also going to be post-processing it in Photoshop for presentation on our portfolio. So keep a lookout for that video tomorrow. Looking forward to seeing ya.